Most cruisers spend weeks thinking about passports, luggage, and boarding day. But every year, travelers arrive at their cruise only to discover they've forgotten an important medication, packed it in the wrong bag, or brought a medication that's restricted in one of their destinations. And when that happens, a small mistake can turn into a very stressful vacation. Whether you take prescription medications, travel with a CPAP machine, manage diabetes, or simply pack a few over-the-counter essentials, there are a few things you should know before you sail. In this guide, I'll show you what to pack, how to pack it, the travel rules that catch cruisers off guard, and a few simple steps that can help you avoid major headaches later. Let's get started. Before you even open a suitcase, there are a few things worth doing first, because this is where many travelers skip steps and create problems later. Start with a medication list. If you take prescription medications, make a simple list that includes the medication name, dosage, and prescribing doctor. Keep a printed copy with your travel documents and save a digital version on your phone. While you're at it, take photos of your prescription bottles, and if you use a pill organizer, consider taking a photo of each pill next to its labeled bottle as well. Store everything in cloud storage or email as a backup. It may seem like a small thing, but if you lose medication, run out during your trip, or need assistance from a doctor or the ship's medical center, you'll be glad you have it. And because you've backed everything up to the cloud or email, you'll still be able to access that information, even if your phone is lost, damaged, or out of battery. Next, take a quick look at your prescription bottles. For international travel especially, it's a good idea to make sure the name on your medication matches your passport or travel documents. Most of the time it will, but if you've recently changed your name, it's worth double-checking before you leave. While you're looking at your prescriptions, here's another useful tip. If your prescription bottles are large, ask your pharmacist about smaller labeled travel bottles. They can make packing much easier. Another thing worth considering before your cruise is travel insurance. Most cruises go exactly as planned. But if medication is lost, delayed, damaged, or if you need unexpected medical care during your trip, having the right coverage can save you a lot of stress and potentially a lot of money. It's not the most exciting part of cruise planning, but it's one of those things you'll appreciate having if something doesn't go according to plan. One last thing. If you take any controlled medications or medications that may be restricted in certain countries, spend a few minutes researching the destinations on your itinerary. We'll come back to that later because some medications that are perfectly legal at home may be restricted or even prohibited in certain destinations. Now, let's talk about what actually belongs in your cruise medication kit. And this is where many cruisers make one of two mistakes. They either pack too much or forget the items they're most likely to need. Start with your prescription medications. These are non-negotiable. Bring enough for your entire trip, plus a few extra days if possible. Cruise ships generally won't have your specific prescriptions available, and replacing them in a foreign port can be difficult, expensive, or sometimes impossible. Once you've covered your prescriptions, think about the situations that commonly happen during a cruise. Maybe you spend all day exploring a port and wake up with sore muscles or a headache. Maybe a day in the sun leaves you dehydrated. Maybe the unlimited buffet, specialty dining, and late-night desserts don't agree with your stomach. Or maybe rough seas show up on day 2 and suddenly you're wishing you'd packed something for motion sickness. That's why experienced cruisers rarely travel without a small over-the-counter medication kit. For aches, pains, and headaches, many cruisers pack pain relievers such as Tylenol or Advil. For motion sickness, Benine and Dramamine are two of the most common options. Even if you've never experienced seasickness before, many experienced travelers recommend bringing some just in case. It's far better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it. Digestive medications like Tums, Pepto-Bismol, or Imodium can also be useful if rich meals, unfamiliar foods, or changes in routine lead to digestive discomfort. Cold and flu medications are worth considering as well. Cruise ships bring together thousands of people from around the world, so having cough drops, decongestants, or cough medicine can be helpful if you start feeling under the weather. If you deal with seasonal allergies, don't forget your preferred antihistamine. Shore excursions often mean more exposure to pollen, plants, insects, and unfamiliar environments. And there are two small items many experienced cruisers swear by: hydrocortisone cream for bug bites, rashes, or skin irritation, and an antibiotic ointment for minor cuts and scrapes during excursions. These items take up very little space, but buying them on board can be surprisingly expensive, and in some ports you may not find the exact products you're used to. A simple medication pouch with your most commonly used essentials can save you time, money, and frustration during your trip. Now let's talk about how to pack those medications properly. Imagine landing in Miami the day before your cruise, heading to baggage claim, and realizing your suitcase never arrived. Replacing a few shirts is inconvenient. Replacing important prescription medication is a very different problem. That's why your essential medications should never go in checked luggage. Checked bags can be delayed, misplaced, or occasionally lost. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, you don't want your prescription medications trapped inside that suitcase. Instead, keep them in your carry-on, or even better, in your personal bag that stays with you at all times. And there's another reason for that. Airlines sometimes ask passengers to check carry-on bags at the gate when overhead bin space runs out. If your medications are packed inside that carry-on, you could suddenly find yourself separated from them for the entire flight. Keeping essential medications in your personal bag eliminates that risk. Another common question cruisers ask is whether prescription medications need to stay in their original bottles. In the United States, the TSA generally does not require prescription medications to remain in their original containers for domestic flights. However, some states may have different requirements depending on where you're traveling. If you're flying internationally, rules can vary by country. That's why many experienced travelers choose to keep prescription medications in their original labeled bottles whenever possible. It can help avoid confusion at airport security, during embarkation, or while visiting ports of call. And if you're sailing with Disney Cruise Line, labeled prescription bottles are specifically required for boarding. Pill organizers are still a great option for daily use on board. Many cruisers simply travel with both, the original labeled bottles for documentation and a pill organizer for daily use once they're settled in the cabin. Another smart practice is bringing a few extra days' worth of medication. Delays, itinerary changes, and travel disruptions can happen, and having a small buffer can provide valuable peace of mind. Finally, keep all of your medications, both prescription and over-the-counter, in one dedicated pouch separate from your other belongings. It's easier to access, easier to organize, and much easier to present if security personnel have any questions. For many cruisers, the trip starts long before embarkation day. If you're flying to your cruise, there are a few medication rules worth knowing before heading to the airport. In the United States, these generally fall under TSA guidelines. If you're traveling from another country, procedures may vary slightly, but the same basic principles usually apply. Let's start with liquid medications because there's a lot of misinformation surrounding them. Liquid medications are not subject to the TSA's Standard 311 rule. Certain medically necessary liquids, including many prescription medications, cough syrups, and contact lens solutions, may be exempt from standard liquid limits. They should be clearly identified as medical liquids whenever possible. You should also separate them from your regular liquids and let the screening agent know before your bag goes through the X-ray. Packing them in a clear bag can help make the process easier. Now let's talk about needles, syringes, and insulin. These medical supplies are generally permitted through airport security. Insulin pens, vials, syringes, lancets, insulin pumps, and continuous glucose monitors are all allowed. Cooling packs for insulin are typically permitted as well, And even a juice box for blood sugar emergencies is generally acceptable. The key is keeping everything together in a separate bag and notifying security personnel that you're traveling with medical supplies. Be prepared for additional screening. It's common and usually not a problem. CPAP machines are also allowed through airport security and on cruise ships. When carried in their own case, they generally do not count against your carry-on allowance because they're considered medical devices. You may be asked to remove the device from its case during screening, so avoid packing other items around it. One more quick tip. If your bag is inspected, double-check that all medications and medical devices were returned before you leave the checkpoint. Travelers have occasionally discovered missing items only after arriving at their destination. If you have a pacemaker, notify security personnel before screening, as you may need to avoid the metal detector. If you use an insulin pump, a pat-down may be required. Letting agents know in advance usually makes the process much easier. Once you're on board, there are a few cruise-specific medication rules you'll want to know. Let's start with the rule that catches more cruisers off guard than almost any other. CBD and marijuana are not allowed on cruise ships, not even medical marijuana, even if you're sailing from a state where it's completely legal, even if you have a valid medical card. Cruise ships operate under maritime law, and the policies are consistent across major cruise lines. These substances are prohibited. Attempting to bring them on board can result in denied boarding, making this one of the most important medication-related rules cruisers should know before they sail. International medication restrictions are another area that often catches travelers off guard. Some medications that are perfectly legal in the United States are banned or restricted in other countries. ADHD medications like Adderall, for example, are banned in Japan. Ambien is restricted in Singapore. Even Tylenol with codeine faces restrictions in certain destinations. And this doesn't only apply to prescription medications. In some countries, certain over-the-counter cold, allergy, sleep, or pain medications may also be restricted. Before your cruise, take a few minutes to review the medication laws for every country on your itinerary. In some cases, certain medications aren't allowed at all. In others, you may simply need additional documentation, such as a letter from your doctor. Now, let's talk about medication storage on board. Most cruise ship staterooms have a mini fridge. However, it may not maintain the temperature required for medications like insulin. If you need proper refrigeration, contact the cruise line before you sail. They can often provide a medical-grade refrigerator for your stateroom or arrange storage through the ship's medical center. The key is making those arrangements in advance rather than waiting until embarkation day. And if you're traveling with injectable medications, there's one more thing you'll want to know. If you use needles or lancets, ask your cabin attendant for a sharps container. Never dispose of needles in the regular trash or toilet. It's against cruise policy and can be dangerous for crew members who handle waste. The ship can dispose of sharps safely and properly. Just ask. One final tip shared by many experienced cruisers: keep your prescription medications in your cabin safe, especially if you're traveling with children, grandchildren, controlled medications, or expensive prescriptions. Not because theft is common, but because it keeps everything secure, organized, and easy to find. Now, while most of these tips apply to everyone, there are a few extra considerations if you travel with insulin, a CPAP machine, or other medical equipment. Diabetics. Don't just bring enough supplies for your cruise. Bring extra. Delays, missed flights, and itinerary changes can happen, and having a backup supply of insulin, testing supplies, and glucose tablets can provide valuable peace of mind. If your insulin requires refrigeration, contact the cruise line before you sail. Many stateroom mini fridges aren't designed for medication storage, so it's a good idea to confirm your options in advance. Depending on the cruise line, a medical-grade refrigerator may be available, or the ship's medical center may be able to assist. CPAP users. Notify the cruise line before you sail. Most lines have a form or process for this. You'll likely need distilled water and may also need power access near your bed. Many cruise lines can provide distilled water and, if needed, may be able to provide an extension cord when requested in advance. Since personal extension cords and power strips are often prohibited on board, contact the cruise line before you sail rather than bringing your own. Your CPAP should travel in its own carrying case, as it is considered a medical device. Frequent travelers. Consider carrying a doctor's letter. Even if it's not required for your specific medications, a letter listing your diagnoses, medications, and dosages can be helpful at customs, in foreign ports, or during an unexpected medical situation. It takes only a few minutes to request and can save a great deal of stress later. Before you zip up your suitcase, let's do one final walkthrough. Make sure your prescription medications are packed in your personal bag or carry-on, not in checked luggage. Bring your original prescription bottles when appropriate, along with a printed or digital medication list and a few extra days' worth of medication in case travel plans change. Double-check that you've packed your basic cruise medication kit, pain relievers, motion sickness medication, digestive remedies, allergy medication, and any other essentials you regularly use. If you're traveling with liquid medications, insulin, or other medical supplies, keep them organized and easy to access during airport screening. If you use a CPAP machine, insulin, or medications that require refrigeration, make sure you've already contacted the cruise line about any special accommodations you may need. And before you leave home, take a few minutes to verify the medication rules for the countries on your itinerary and confirm your travel insurance coverage. A few minutes of preparation now can save you a lot of stress once your vacation begins. Before you go, let me know in the comments, what's one medication or medical item you never travel without on a cruise? Your tip could help someone else avoid a problem on their next trip. And if you're still planning your cruise, click the video on your screen now. It covers more cruise tips, mistakes to avoid, and things many travelers don't learn until it's too late. Safe travels, and I'll see you in the next one.